Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Andrew Yang and the shape of careers under an Andrew Yang presidency. Okay, so we're just projecting what we all expect to happen. Andrew Yang wins the primary. Andrew Yang beats Trump in the general, and then on January 20th, 2021, Andrew Yang is president. When he drops in, there's going to be almost like a Camelot environment, right? There's going to be, well, one, you're going to be coming out of this wasteland of a presidency with Trump. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me give you the full structure. Basically, of this video and tell you what I'm talking about. This video is specifically about jobs that pay in more than one currency, recognizing that many jobs pay in more than one currency, and that the federal government, the national government of the United States of America, needs to acknowledge this and then address this through taxation, instruction, and inspiration. Okay? All right, so basically the other thing that I want to say is everything I talk about in this video, this is all under an Andrew Yang presidency, and it's one of the reasons why we should all be desperately moving toward doing everything we can to make Andrew Yang president, right? Because everything I'm saying here, it only works under an Andrew Yang presidency because he is bringing UBI, which is a transformative model. Every single other 2020 primary Democrat U.S. presidential candidate is working on a legacy artifact economy model. UBI is transformative. It gives everybody in the country, every living adult between 16 and 65, actually that's now 105, because between 18 and 118 years old, it gives them $1,000 a month extra. This is transformative of society. Basically, the more I've been thinking about this, like, it's huge. Not only does every individual have $1,000 extra dollars, right? But think of what families can do. Think of what friend groups can do. Think of what churches can do. Think of what social organizations can do. Like, everybody in America's been kind of making it without this, right? There are certainly problems, but we're still ahead of most, people in the world. And this is next level, step level growth for America, right? But it also brings us as a nation to this point where we begin to talk about careers and what people are doing for work in a completely new light. Because at this point, no one, with 12 grand as your zero, right? You are in a situation where you're light years ahead of many people on the earth, right? Even at zero, you're ahead of them. And you are really going to be dealing with stuff at the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy, right? We're just going to be talking about art and, and like the first world problems are going to become so extreme. It's incredible, right? But the reality is we have this opportunity to absolutely transform our society. And part of that is going to be having to look at what companies are paying for different jobs. And as a government, actually getting into the mix and saying we really, as a government, the United States of America, has to seriously think about how it is rewarding the hiring of people for certain jobs, right? And that really, for many jobs, there's probably no reward needed through taxation, instruction, or inspiration from the government. And if you do give distinct rewards through taxation, inspiration, and instruction from the U.S. government for certain careers, it really helps the entire society. It helps our culture and our society tremendously. So let's talk about it. All right, so first I want to define this, right? One thing that we have this huge problem now, and everything I'm talking about only came into my mind when I began to really envision an Andrew Yang presidency, right? Because it's not like any other presidency. He's the only U.S. presidential candidate in the history of the United States of America that has really brought forward a modern platform, a modern economy platform. That's it. He's the only one. UBI is incredibly transformative, and it is going to reshape the way we think about labor, right? So let's get into it. So there are certain careers that pay in more currency than dollars. And right now, our entire nation, every corporation, every individual, every institution, all we think about for jobs is how they're paid in money, right? And the government, when Andrew Yang drops UBI, is going to really start to need to very, very quickly think about what are the opportunities we now have with this super, super elevated populace, right? Who are no longer worrying about shelter and food, right? Like they could completely ignore the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy, right? Those, and maybe punch through the top of the pyramid into new levels, right? And so it's incredible, right? So let's talk about these careers, right? So you have money. We all know that, right? And you can get money for working at Taco Bell, right? All right, there you go. Now, here's another currency: honor. Where can you get honor? What job pays honor? Well, I'll tell you right now: fireperson, fireman, firewoman. That is like the most honored job in America, bar none, right? Basically, it's always been incredibly honored, an honored role, right? People like all over. Half the fire stations in America, or some number, it's not half, but some significant number of America, you don't even have to pay people to do this job. They'll do it for free because there's so much honor attached, right? There are completely volunteer firehouses in certain areas. Like, there's so much currency, extra currency, honor attached to this job. You literally don't even have to pay for it in some areas, right? So honor is another currency. It's paid for fireperson, right? Respect. Who gets respect in America? Professors, right? The professor job is incredibly sought after. It's one of the few jobs that has tenure, right? You get respect from the administration. You get respect. You get called in as an expert by the media sometimes. You get respect from your students. You get respect from your peers, right? You get respect for professor. That's a second currency. Professor pays money and it pays respect, right? What else? Street cred. Street cred is a big one, right? The biggest place where I've seen street cred, and when I say street, I'm talking any street, right? I'm talking the suburban streets of Maine, and I'm talking the harsh streets of Philadelphia, right? Like, street cred. You get street cred on every street, right? You might live on like a cul-de-sac, right, in the middle of a suburb, but you still got street cred on that street. Different communities give different street cred for different jobs. Tell you one right now. Street cred for game designers, board game designers, video game designers, tabletop role-playing game designers, card game designers, right? Man, people want these jobs so desperately. I have seen so many software developers, right, who pour literally hundreds or even well over 1,000 hours into a game to create a game at rates that return them $2.50, $5, $7.50 50 cents an hour, because they're getting street cred within those communities, those gaming communities. Street cred is absolutely a currency that jobs pay, that game designer pays, right? Gratitude, here's a big one, right? So doctors, when you save someone's life, right, and you come out into the waiting room, the families will say, "Oh, doctor, thank you so much for saving this person's life." A long time ago, I worked at a different IT company than I work at now, and at that company, there was a situation where whenever a new product was created, they would make these little statues and they would give them to everybody on those teams, right? And there was a network guy I worked with, and he did not have a single statue on his desk, and he would walk throughout that place and he would see statues all over people's desks for projects they had completed, right? Now, he was in networking and he had 0 statues because he didn't complete any projects. But what everybody was forgetting was he completed every project, right? Networking, the data ran over his network, and he was involved in every single project. And instead of having a trophy for every project, he had a trophy for no projects, right? It was one of the saddest things I ever realized when I made the mistake of asking him why. And I remember the sadness on his face, and he's like, "Well, we're networking. People just don't see us as a helper," right? And I was like, "Oh my gosh," And it was incredible. I was just like, it blew my mind, right? That job had no gratitude. When you're a doctor, man, like you can fix a toenail, a hangnail, people are going to say, thank you, right? That is a big deal. There are people who do incredibly difficult jobs and never get a thank you, ever, right? And it's hard, so that's a currency. That is a currency that doctors received. I mean, have you ever been hugged by a mother who you just saved their child? Do you know what that kind of gratitude would feel like? Do you know how that would just fill your soul the way you would pour water into a glass and overflow? Can you imagine, right? And some of these currencies, get this, the thing you are getting from some of these jobs, it cannot be bought for any price, right? The gratitude of a mother for saving their child, you can't buy that, right? It's not available from Amazon. You can't get it delivered through Prime, right? And so some of these, it's incredibly important that we start to realize now. Some jobs get multiple currencies, multiple payments, right? And there's going to be ramifications for this on how we deal with it from the government, right? And so here's another one, fame, right? If you're an actor or a musician, if you're a successful actor and a musician, you get money and then you get fame, right? You get awe from people. You get, people will scream when they see you, right? Again, it's a currency that you couldn't buy with dollars, right? It's incredible, right? And so those jobs, actor and musician, they pay in fame as well, right? Here's an unusual one, solace, right? A municipal clerk who does data entry and stamps forms and just collates forms, right? A municipal clerk, right? That there are no emergencies for a municipal clerk, right? You simply show up at 9 in the morning and you leave at 5 at night, and frankly, there aren't going to be data entry emergencies. You're not going to get a call at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night. That network guy I told you about, he got calls at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night. You know what I mean? Some jobs give solace. They give peace. You can schedule something on a Saturday because ain't nobody calling you in to stamp a form on a Saturday, right? Solace, right? Here's another one, power, right? Cops. There you go. The only people in the entire United States of America that we sanction to carry a firearm and sanction the use of that firearm in incredibly limited circumstances. That's the power of life and death, right? That's power. Guess what? There's people who want it, right? That is a currency. You are getting paid in a second currency for that job, right? Here's the last one, nobility, right? Who in America is paid in nobility? Farmers, big time, right? In America, everybody loves farmers. Politicians love farmers. Doesn't matter if they're local or federal or state. Everybody loves farmers, right? And it's just considered noble work, right? So you're paid in nobility, right? When a farmer listens, people, when a farmer talks, people shut up, right? You're like, oh, this person's close to the earth, right? It's a big deal, right? So here's the thing, all right, now that we know, now we've talked about it, right? So now we understand that there are jobs that are paying a second currency. So what do we do with that, right? Well, one, there's also, here's a good one, plumber, right? You know what plumber pays, you know what second currency plumber pays? None, absolutely none, right? But we need plumbers, we need welders, right? We need carpenters, right? A lot of these jobs have absolutely no second currency. They have one currency. So let's talk about it. Here we go, right? So what do you do with these jobs that pay a second currency? Well, guess what? They're going to be filled if the government so here's the thing. Start taxing them more. You could triple fame, right? You could triple the taxes on the movie industry. You could triple the taxes on the music industry, right? You think we're going to have a crisis, and there's not going to be people playing guitar and wanting to act? In my church, I can't spin around and throw a rock without hitting somebody who plays guitar, right? There's going to be people. You can tax the living heck out of that industry you are not going to have a single open position. There'll still be people making movies, and there will still be people making music, right? And honestly, I'm not even sure it would affect the quality in any way. The reality is, I think there are some people who go into those fields for money, but there's no need for them because there are people who want fame, right? So jack up the taxes, tax that entire industry by 2-3 times, right? Here's the other one. The government should give no inspiration and no instruction for those jobs, right? So basically, the president isn't going to give any speech saying, encouraging people to go into those fields because there's no need for it, right? The government is not going to build any type of instruction on how to get those jobs more easily because there's no need for it, right? And all the rest of those jobs, you can give some mix of that, right? You can abandon inspiration, instruction, and low taxes for every single one of these industries. Tax them like crazy, right? Give them no tax breaks, right? And then also take the power of the presidency, take the power of all those different organizations, and then encourage people. Give great speeches that say, plumbers are the best of us, right? Carpenters are the best of us, and really encourage any type of work. Oh, here's a perfect one, right? The people who supply clean water in this nation, they are the noblest of us, right? The president can give that speech, right? And then the organizations, the education department, and the Department of Energy, and all those other ones can build paths saying, you want this job, now that the president has pointed to the nobility of this job, you want this job, here's exactly how you get it. And we will answer any questions you have, right? We will help you every step of the way. All you have to do is declare your intent to take jobs that will give every American clean water, right? You want to build bridges and do engineering work? Right? Absolutely. We're gonna give you a path to find exactly what you need, right? So using the resources of the government, we can give these other jobs, that pay nothing but money, right? And we can raise them up, we can elevate them, right? And then those other jobs, right? We can abandon giving them tax breaks, which they don't need in order to fill the jobs that are going to be there, right? Because they're gonna have no problem. And anybody who's like, oh, this is taxed at 3 times, right? I'm a movie executive, I'm leaving movies and I'm going into whatever, and I'm going into pharmacology, right? Because that's not taxed as well. Guess what? It's going to take about a New York second to replace you, movie executive person, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, let them leave. It does not matter in the least, right? And this is one of the things that we can think about under an Andrew Yang presidency, right? Is really going to town and using the power of the government to reshape society and reshape how we look at labor. We are rewarding people for pursuing jobs that there is absolutely no need to reward anyone for pursuing them because they pay multiple currencies. And there are jobs in this nation that pay nothing but money, right? No honor, no solace, nothing, right? And you can, and basically those jobs can be massively elevated through massive tax breaks, right? Through inspirational speeches by the president, and guess what? The president can even like bring in the media and bring in actors and actresses and other musicians and like really go to town and really lift up these jobs that we need filled with the best and brightest, right? And we can make sure that those other jobs start to get some of this additional shine, right? It's really, really important. And it only happens under an Andrew Yang presidency. It only happens under an Andrew Yang presidency. The reshaping of how we look as a nation at labor only happens under an Andrew Yang presidency, right? Now, that's my model. That's all, instruction, inspiration, taxes. That's what I think should be the response to understanding that these jobs have these other currencies. I want to talk about solace real quickly, right? You could take solace, you could treat that one differently than all the rest, right? So you wouldn't have to do taxes or instruction or inspiration for those. What if we could identify the jobs that give solace and match them with people who have mental health issues, with anxiety and things like that? Could you imagine that? Look at the public good that we could do in the slightest way with probably very little cost, right? And I think that's why I'm so absolutely excited by an Andrew Yang presidency, is just this idea of transformation and this idea of looking at labor in a completely new way. And it only happens under an Andrew Yang presidency, because he's the only one who will transform us into a modern economic platform, rather than every other candidate, Harris and Warren and Biden and Buttigieg, all just trotting out the same old legacy artifact, rusty economic models, right? With a tweak here and a tweak there, thinking that they're going to change the world. They're not, right? But Yang has the absolute ability to transform this nation, to make the bottom two bars of Maslow's hierarchy meaningless, and maybe to build entire new levels on top of the hierarchy. That is transformative. And it's so transformative that I think it would affect the rest of the world as well. You would have other governments who are like, oh my gosh, look what's happening in America. They have new levels on top of the hierarchy, right? It's incredible, right? So I think it's really important. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on the topic. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.